There is a moment every single day that most people in Britain take for granted. The kettle clicks off. You drop a tea bag into your mug. You pour the water and you breathe in the steam, and something in your body just settles. That ritual is woven into the fabric of this country. It is how we start the morning. It is how we recover from bad news. It is what we offer strangers when they walk through the door. Tea is not just a drink in Britain. It is a language. Which is exactly why what we are about to tell you matters so much. Because that quiet moment of comfort, that ritual you rely on without a second thought, is being quietly exploited by some of the biggest names in the British tea industry. The mug you are holding right now may contain billions of microscopic plastic particles shed from the tea bag itself. The leaves inside that bag may carry residues from pesticides applied across industrial farming operations spanning multiple continents. The dust and fragments that make up the contents of a mass-market tea bag bear almost no resemblance to the kind of tea the branding implies you are buying. And the brands doing this are not the obscure ones. They are the household names. The ones your parents bought. The ones that have been sitting on British kitchen shelves for generations. The ones you reach for without thinking because they feel as familiar and safe as the mug itself. Today on TruthCart UK, we're going through 5 of those brands in detail, exposing exactly what is wrong, exactly what they have been hiding, and exactly how long they have been getting away with it. Then we are finishing with 5 brands that are genuinely doing things properly because they do exist and you deserve to know where to find them. Let us start at the beginning. The first brand is Tetley. Tetley is the warm jumper of British tea. Familiar, comforting, the brand your nan has been buying since before you were born. It has been part of the national conversation about tea for so long that questioning it feels almost rude, like pointing out something unflattering about a beloved family member. That familiarity is precisely the problem, and it is precisely what Tetley has been coasting on for years while quietly failing the people who trust it most. For a significant period of time, Tetley sealed its tea bags using polypropylene, a petroleum-based plastic, not a plant-derived material, not a biodegradable fibre. Actual plastic, derived from oil, sitting in near boiling water every time someone made a cup of tea. The implications of that are not minor. Scientific studies examining plastic tea bags in hot water have found that a single bag can release billions of microplastic and nanoplastic particles into a single cup. Billions. That is not a trace amount. That is not background noise. That is a measurable, significant, and deeply concerning quantity of microscopic plastic that people were consuming with every cup. Often multiple cups a day, every single day. The body of research into the health effects of microplastic consumption is still developing, but what is already emerging is not reassuring. These particles are being found in human blood, in lung tissue, in placental tissue. Scientists are raising serious questions about what long-term accumulation looks like. And while that research continues, British households were making multiple cups of Tetley a day, every day, without any warning on the box. Then there is the tea itself. Tetley is not selling you carefully selected whole leaves from a single estate. You are getting a blend of tea dust and broken leaf fragments, the material left over after larger, higher, quality producers have taken what they want from the harvest. This is called fannings in the industry, and it is the lowest rung of the tea production ladder. It brews fast and it brews strong because the surface area of the tiny particles is enormous. But complexity, nuance, and anything resembling the genuine flavor profile of quality tea, gone entirely. What you are tasting is bitterness and tannin, not tea. Add to this the pesticide question. Mass-market teas sourced from large industrial supply chains across South Asia and Africa have been repeatedly flagged in independent testing for pesticide residues, multiple chemicals detected in single products. The scale of industrial tea farming means pesticide use is widespread and in some cases far exceeds the residue limits set by European food safety standards. Tetley sources from exactly these kinds of supply chains, and the transparency about what testing is being done, how regularly, and what the results actually are is almost non-existent. What makes the Tetley situation particularly frustrating is the timeline. Smaller, independent tea brands walked away from plastic tea bag seals years before Tetley did. The technology existed. The alternatives were available. Tetley chose not to use them until public pressure and media attention made the status quo untenable. By the time the brand began any kind of transition, An incalculable number of cups had already been made and drunk by people who had absolutely no idea what they were consuming. And even after beginning a transition, the communication to consumers was minimal. No loud announcement, no honest reckoning, just a quiet reformulation and the hope that nobody would notice the years that came before. Tetley survives on nostalgia and the inertia of habit. It does not survive on the quality of the product or the integrity of the people making it. The second brand is PG Tips. If Tetley is the warm jumper, PG Tips is the cheeky friend who always has an angle. The pyramid bag was supposed to change everything. It was a design breakthrough, a premium statement, proof that PG Tips was not just another flat bag in a crowded market. The advertising was playful. The shape was eye-catching, and millions of British households made the switch believing they were upgrading their daily brew. Here is the part that should make you genuinely angry. Those pyramid bags were made from nylon, not paper, not plant fiber. Nylon, a synthetic plastic material fashioned into a mesh and dropped directly into boiling water in millions of British kitchens, day after day for years. The research into what happens when plastic tea bag materials meet near boiling water is unambiguous. The heat accelerates the breakdown of the material. Particles shed into the water at a rate that independent laboratory studies have described as staggering. One Canadian study found that a single plastic mesh tea bag released approximately 11 billion microplastic particles and over 3 billion nanoplastic particles into the water at steeping temperatures. These are particles so small they cannot be seen with the naked eye. They pass through the gut lining. They enter the bloodstream. They accumulate in tissue. PG Tips built a major marketing campaign around the design feature that was causing this. They celebrated the pyramid. They told consumers it was better because the leaves could move around inside the bag. What they did not tell consumers was that the bag itself was made from plastic that was actively breaking down into your drink. That omission is not accidental. That is a calculated decision to prioritize the commercial advantage of the design over the safety of the people drinking it. When the evidence became too loud to ignore, when independent research started making headlines and consumers started asking questions, PG Tips began transitioning to alternative materials. But the transparency during and after that transition has been thin. You are still told very little about where the tea comes from, what farming standards apply, what testing is done on pesticide residues, or what the full picture of the supply chain looks like. The brand communicates strength. It communicates boldness. What it does not communicate is honesty. Strength is the central selling point of PG Tips, and that is significant when a brand focuses entirely on how hard a tea hits. It is deliberately directing your attention away from every other question. You are not supposed to think about what is in the bag. You are supposed to think about how the tea makes you feel. That is a distraction strategy, and it has worked remarkably well for a remarkably long time. The third brand is Yorkshire Tea Standard Blend. Yorkshire Tea is possibly the most effectively branded tea in Britain today. The imagery of flat caps, straight talk, honest northern values, and a no-nonsense approach to everything has created one of the most trusted identities in the British food and drink landscape. People who would not normally care which brand they buy will go out of their way for Yorkshire Tea. It has become a statement of values, a way of saying you are not pretentious, that you know what you want and you do not mess about. That identity makes what we are about to say considerably more uncomfortable. For years, Yorkshire Tea Standard bags were sealed with plastic. Not everywhere, not in every product, but in the core everyday blend that the vast majority of Yorkshire tea drinkers buy most often. The same plastic seal problem that plagued Tetley and PG Tips was sitting quietly inside the brand that millions of people trusted specifically because it seemed to stand for something better. Eventually, Yorkshire Tea announced a move toward plant-based sealing materials. And here is where it gets complicated. That transition has not been simple, clean, or complete. Some products changed, some packaging evolved, but it has been a piecemeal, difficult-to-follow process that has required consumers to keep reading small print and checking individual products rather than being able to simply trust the brand. For a company built on the idea of straightforwardness, the transition to plastic-free tea bags has been anything but straight. There is also a deeper issue with what plant-based sealing materials actually mean in practice. Many of the plant-derived alternatives currently used by tea brands are classified as industrially compostable rather than home compostable. The practical difference is enormous. Industrial composting requires specific high-temperature conditions found in commercial composting facilities, conditions that a household compost bin cannot replicate. If you drop one of these bags into a normal bin, or even a home compost heap, it behaves in almost exactly the same way as conventional plastic. The carbon chain is different at the molecular level, but the environmental outcome in ordinary disposal conditions is not meaningfully better. And then there is the sourcing. Yorkshire Tea buys from major global supply chains, the same networks that supply much of the mass-market tea in the UK. The pesticide question applies here as it does everywhere in this category. Yet Yorkshire Tea's communication about independent testing for pesticide residues, about what the actual results show, and about what standards are being applied at the farm level is notable primarily for what it omits. What you get instead is reassurance. Calm, friendly reassurance in the same warm tone that has made the brand so successful. The problem with reassurance is that it does not require evidence. The danger of Yorkshire Tea is not that it is obviously bad. It is that it is convincingly good at appearing trustworthy without the internal standards to fully match that appearance. When a brand leans this hard on the idea of integrity, the gap between the image and the reality becomes more damaging, not less. The fourth brand is Twinings Everyday Blends. Twinings has been selling tea in Britain since 1706, 3 centuries of heritage, royal warrants, gold lettering, packaging that whispers refinement from every shelf it sits on. This is the brand that people reach for when they want to feel like they are choosing something distinguished. When they want to give tea as a gift and have it look like they put thought in. Here is the reality inside those elegant boxes. Many of Twinings' everyday blends, the English breakfast, the everyday, the standard green teas, are built primarily on tea dust and fannings. These are the lowest grade tea materials available commercially. Dust is literally what it sounds like, fine particles, often swept from the processing floor after the higher quality material has already been sorted and sold. Fannings are the smallest broken leaf fragments, produced as a byproduct of larger scale tea processing. Both brew quickly, both produce a strong dark cup, and both lack almost entirely the complexity, aroma, and genuine flavor that quality tea leaves produce. The implication for consumers is significant. You are paying a premium, the price that Twinings commands based on its heritage and brand positioning, for tea that represents the lowest rung of the quality ladder. The box signals luxury. The contents are leftovers. That gap between expectation and reality is not accidental. It is the entire business model. The pesticide issue at Twinings is serious and well documented. Public investigations and independent laboratory testing have previously identified multiple pesticide residues in Twinings products, not one chemical, not a borderline trace, but several different substances detected simultaneously in single products. These findings were not isolated incidents buried in obscure reports. They were published, covered by consumer organizations, and raised serious questions about the sourcing and testing standards, one of Britain's most recognizable tea brands. Twinings' response to this kind of scrutiny is a masterclass in brand management. The tone remains calm. The messaging remains assured. The royal warrants and the 3 centuries of history are kept prominently in view, because history is the most effective deflection available. When people trust a brand this deeply, they resist evidence of wrongdoing. The older the brand, the stronger the resistance. Twinings understands this perfectly. On the packaging side, progress has been slow. Plastic has lingered in various parts of Twinings' packaging long after smaller, less resourced brands had already solved the same problem. The company has the financial capacity to lead on this. It has consistently chosen not to. What makes Twinings genuinely troubling is the contrast between what it could be and what it has chosen to be. A brand with these resources, this scale, and this heritage could be setting the standard for sustainable, pesticide-free, genuinely premium British tea. Instead, it has chosen margins and mass production, wrapped in gold lettering and the borrowed prestige of 300 years. The 5th brand is Typhoo. There is a particular kind of sadness that comes with the Typhoo story. Not outrage, not shock, just the quiet, familiar sadness of watching something decline so completely that it can barely justify its own continued existence. Typhoo was once a genuinely significant name in British tea. Founded in Birmingham in 1903, it was built on a specific health claim that the smaller leaf size of their tea was easier on digestion. That positioning was enough to establish the brand as a staple in millions of households. For decades, Typhoo sat comfortably on British shelves as a trusted, affordable option for everyday tea drinking. That era is over. The tea itself is weak, noticeably metallic in aftertaste, and entirely forgettable. When a tea has no character, no warmth, no roundness, no depth, that is not an accident of flavor preference. It is the direct result of using the lowest quality raw material available and doing the minimum required to make it drinkable. Typhoo has been built on cut corners for so long that cutting corners has become the product itself. The packaging has consistently leaned heavily on plastic foil and unnecessary materials. Shiny, wasteful, and architecturally unchanged in a market that has moved significantly toward more responsible packaging choices. There is no evidence of meaningful investment in improvement. There is no credible communication about sourcing standards or pesticide testing. What you get from Typhoo is silence dressed up in cheerful branding. The business story tells you everything the product already suggests. In recent years, Typhoo has faced serious financial difficulties, production halts, administration proceedings, profound uncertainty about its future. When a company is in that kind of crisis, the operational priorities shift entirely. Sustainability, ingredient quality, testing standards, supply chain integrity, all of these move down the list. Keeping the lights on becomes the only concern. You are not drinking a thoughtfully crafted blend. You are drinking the residue of a business in retreat, a product that exists because it always has, not because anyone is actively working to make it worth drinking. Typhoo is the easiest brand on this list to walk away from because it has already walked away from you. Now for the other side of the story, because it exists, and it is more accessible than most people realize. The first brand worth your attention is Clipper. If you have been listening to everything we have said so far and feeling increasingly grim about the state of British tea, Clipper is the reset you need. This is what happens when a brand makes the right decisions from the very beginning and then stubbornly refuses to compromise on them, regardless of what the market is doing around it. Clipper was founded in 1984 with a simple and at the time genuinely radical commit in organic tea, fairly traded from the start, not as a later stage repositioning, not as a response to consumer pressure. From the very beginning, before either of those things were fashionable or commercially obvious, Clipper decided that this was the only way to do it properly. The plastic tea bag problem that has plagued every brand we have discussed, Clipper solved it years ago. Their bags are made from unbleached plant-based fiber, no plastic seal, no petroleum-derived material sitting in your hot water. The bags are home compostable, meaning you can actually put them in a normal household compost bin and they will break down without industrial intervention. That is a genuinely higher standard than most brands that claim to have addressed the plastic issue. The tea inside is certified organic, which means the farms producing it operate without synthetic pesticides. This is not a marketing claim with no substance behind it. Organic certification requires independent auditing. It requires records. It requires actual compliance at the farm level. When Clipper says organic, there is a paper trail behind that word that most other brands cannot match. The Fair Trade certification means the farmers and workers in Clipper's supply chain receive fair wages and work under decent conditions. Again, this is not a vague ethical gesture. Fair trade is an audited standard with specific requirements. The farmers growing Clipper's tea are not being squeezed to the point where corners get cut on pesticide use because there is no money left for anything else. The flavor reflects all of this. Clipper tea is clean and rounded. There is no harsh bitterness chasing you through the cup. Nothing tastes like it is trying to distract you or overpower you. It just tastes like tea. The way tea is supposed to taste when the raw material is good and nothing has been done to corrupt it. Clipper does not sell you heritage or royal warrants or the idea of British tradition. It sells you a clean cup with nothing to hide. In a category defined by brands hiding things, that is extraordinary. The second brand is Pukka. Pukka operates in herbal tea territory, but it is worth including here because the standards it maintains are genuinely exceptional and because herbal tea is where a huge amount of the worst practice in the category is concentrated. Wellness branding is everywhere in herbal tea. The word natural is deployed constantly. The imagery of herbs and flowers and forests is used liberally. And behind much of it, the reality is anything but natural. Pukka is different. Every herb in every Pukka blend is certified organic. This is not a selective claim applied to a handful of ingredients. Every single component in every blend carries organic certification, given the number of blends Pukka produces and the diversity of ingredients they use. From ashwagandha to licorice root to elderflower, maintaining that standard across the entire range is a significant operational commitment. They do it anyway. The tea bags themselves are made from plant fibers stitched together with organic cotton thread, no plastic, no synthetic seal, no chemical adhesive holding anything together. You can compost the entire bag at home. For a consumer who wants to be completely certain that nothing synthetic is going into their water, Pukka removes every possible source of doubt. The sourcing philosophy at Pukka goes beyond just avoiding pesticides. The brand works directly with growers, prioritizes ingredients at their most potent rather than simply at their cheapest, and treats the quality of the raw herb as the central variable in everything they do. This shows up in the flavor. Pukka teas do not taste flat or dusty. They taste alive, the way fresh herbs actually smell when you grow them or buy them from a market stall. Even the outer packaging has been designed with thought. The envelopes that keep the tea bags fresh use materials chosen to protect the herbs without wrapping everything in unnecessary plastic. This level of detail in a product category where most brands consider the tea bag itself to be an afterthought is telling. Pukka considers every component a decision, and every decision an opportunity to do things better. If you are drinking herbal tea and the brand you are buying is not Pukka or operating at a similar standard, you are almost certainly getting less than the packaging implies. The third brand is Teapigs. Teapigs is built on one central, genuinely disruptive idea: if the tea is good enough to drink, you should be able to see it. The brand's tea temples, the mesh pouches they use instead of conventional flat bags, are transparent for a reason. You can see the whole leaves inside. You can see the petals, the spices, the dried fruit pieces in the blended varieties. Nothing is hidden because there is nothing to hide. Those mesh pouches caused understandable concern when plastic tea bag research started making headlines. They look superficially similar to the nylon pyramids used by PG Tips, and the association was uncomfortable. The difference is fundamental. Teapigs temples are made from cornstarch, a plant-derived material that breaks down completely. No nylon, no polypropylene, no synthetic plastic of any kind. The material was chosen specifically because the brand wanted the visual transparency of a mesh without the toxicological implications of petroleum-based plastic. The tea inside is whole leaf, not dust, not fannings, not factory floor fragments. Actual, complete, recognizable tea leaves. This matters for flavor in an immediate and obvious way. Whole leaf tea has structural complexity, multiple compounds that release at different rates during steeping, producing a cup with layers of flavor rather than a single blunt wall of tannin and bitterness. When you drink Teapigs and then go back to a mass market flat bag, the comparison is startling. Teapigs is not perfect, and unusually, the brand will tell you this directly. Some outer packaging still uses materials that need further development. The brand communicates honestly about what it is still working on rather than presenting a polished fiction of complete sustainability. That honesty is rare and it matters. Trust is rebuilt through transparency about imperfection, not through the pretense of flawlessness. The drinking experience with Teapigs is calm and layered. The tea does not hit you like a blunt instrument. It reveals itself. That is what good tea does, and it is something you will not experience from any brand built on dust and fannings. The fourth brand is Bird and Blend Tea. Bird and Blend looks, at first glance, like the kind of brand you might dismiss. The colors are bold. The names are playful. Blends with names that sound more like cocktails or desserts than tea. The whole aesthetic is loud and energetic in a category that typically favors restraint and heritage imagery. You might assume the fun is the point and the substance is secondary. You would be wrong. Bird and Blend's tea bags are made from plant-based material derived from cornstarch, fully compostable, no plastic, no hidden synthetic components. The brand was fully aware that the majority of British tea drinkers still use bags rather than loose leaf, and rather than using that as an excuse to cut corners on materials, they treated it as a design brief. If most people are going to use bags, make the best possible bag. That is what they did. The packaging goes further still. Compostable inner lining, minimal waste design, and an ongoing program of improvement rather than a fixed standard declared and then ignored. Bird and Blend treats sustainability as a continuous process, a moving target they are actively chasing rather than a certification achieved and then forgotten. The sourcing is transparent and the supply chains are ethical. The ingredients are carefully selected for quality, and the brand communicates honestly about where things come from and why certain decisions are made. For a company with the visual language of a sweet shop, the operational standards are serious and well documented. What Bird and Blend demonstrates is that ethical tea does not have to feel like a compromise or a sacrifice. You are not being asked to drink something worthy but joyless. You are being invited to enjoy tea that happens also to be responsibly made. The fun is genuine. The responsibility is genuine. Both exist simultaneously without contradiction. If the brands we talked about in the first half of this video made tea feel like a source of anxiety, Bird and Blend makes it feel like a pleasure again. The fifth brand is Whittard of Chelsea. Whittard has been part of the British premium tea conversation for a long time, but for much of that time the premium was primarily aesthetic. The beautiful tins, the Chelsea address, the sense of occasion the packaging created. Inside the boxes, the quality case was harder to make. That has changed. In recent years, Whittard has made meaningful and visible improvements to how it sources, packages, and presents its tea. Plastic-heavy packaging has been progressively replaced with compostable and plant-based alternatives. Tea bags have moved to biodegradable fiber materials. The petroleum components that were quietly present in the packaging for too long are being systematically removed. The leaf quality has improved alongside the packaging. Many of Whittard's blends now use genuinely higher grade material, whole leaves and larger leaf pieces rather than the dust and fannings that dominate the mass market. The flavor difference is immediately apparent. Smoother, more complex, less harsh. Tea that tastes like it was made with leaves rather than with what was left after the leaves were sold. Whittard has also aligned with ethical sourcing initiatives and moved toward greater supply chain transparency. This is not a brand that has always been this way. The improvement is real and recent. But acknowledging that brands can change, that sustained improvement is possible, is part of the point. The question to ask of any tea brand is not only where it started, but where it is heading and whether it is moving in the right direction with genuine commitment. Whittard is not cheap, and nor should it be. What you are paying for now is a product that matches its packaging, quality materials, responsible sourcing, and genuine flavor. After everything this video has covered, a brand that earns its price rather than borrowing it from history is worth knowing about. The real takeaway from all of this is simple. Tea should comfort you. The moment the kettle clicks off and you pour the water should be a moment of genuine restoration, not a quiet delivery system for microplastics, pesticide residues, and the lowest grade agricultural by-products the global supply chain produces. Tea is too important to this country to be treated the way some of these brands have been treating it. The information to make better choices exists. The better choices themselves exist, and they are accessible in major supermarkets, in independent shops, online. Clipper is in Tesco. Teapigs is in Waitrose. Pukka is everywhere. These are not niche products requiring special effort to find. They are sitting on the same shelves as the brands that have been failing you, waiting to be chosen. Read the box. Question the heritage claim when there is nothing behind it but history. Ask whether the bag material is actually plastic-free or just marketed as if it is. Ask whether organic means audited certification or just a leafy font choice. Your daily cup is a daily decision. Make it one that actually serves you. TruthCart UK. Because the label never tells the whole story.